watching the Scottish Football Zone with all the build-up and reactions.
And here you go again. That's that time of the week again, where another week's over and we look forward to football. And it's a busy weekend of football, actually, in the Scottish Cup. It all begins tonight at 8:15 at Airdrie against St Mirren, and it continues right the way through until, believe it or not, Sunday night at 7:30. What a weird time for a game, but hey ho, that's how TV works now. Get your comments coming in, and we will chew over the fat in terms of the Scottish Cup action this weekend. Joined by James Elliott. James needs no introduction to this. He's I would say he's an old hand, but I don't want to scare him off, so I'll just say he's a hand.
No, I think you're right with the description old hand. I've been round the houses a few times, Michael, I can assure you.
and that's as far as it goes. As I say in our business, James, the family of the show, so let's move on quickly. First of all, disappointed on Wednesday night how the Aberdeen Celtic game was off. By the way, I must say as well, the Aberdeen's game's off tomorrow night against Murrow. That will be arranged for, I think I saw the 18th of February, so a couple of weeks' time. But from a Celtic point of view, James, you must have been disappointed because obviously, Hearts got beat the previous night.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great opportunity for both Celtic and Rangers, to sort of cut the gap. It was just unfortunate from a Celtic perspective that the game against Aberdeen got cancelled, and obviously Rangers managed to take advantage of the slip up by Hearts and the fact that Celtic weren't playing to get themselves into second place. But funnily enough, I was watching Martin O'Neill speaking earlier on this afternoon, and I don't know if I picked it up incorrectly, but he seemed to be suggesting that the game against Aberdeen is going to be played next Wednesday.
No, it's March.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I think it's from memory, James. I need to check this one out. But it's the 4th of March. But no, Celtic's got a game next Wednesday. It's at home to Livingston.
Right, I picked them up incorrectly then, because I just thought to myself, God, that's really quick, that they've managed to get that onto the card. But on the cancellation of the game, I felt sorry for the supporters, the travelling supporters, and to be honest, any team supporters that there's a late call off because of weather conditions or whatever, I do genuinely have sympathy for. And I just don't understand how there can't be a better way of reaching that decision, say 24 hours before, like they have done for the game tomorrow against Motherwell. I mean, obviously you can't leave it up to the club to make that call themselves, because the chances are they might think, oh no, that pitch is playable and we want to get this game on, when in actual fact it's not. But surely there must be some way that the SFA or the SPFL can have some sort of independent person, not necessarily a referee or linesman, but somebody independent, to go and have a wee look at a ground and then say 24 hours beforehand, nah, we're not going to get this game on.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a few weeks ago, well, more than a few weeks ago now, James, was it early December? Queen's Park in Ross County get called off with 10 minutes to go, and all the Ross County fans were booing, because, I mean, too rightly so, because obviously the game would get called off that night. Ross County fans would still not be getting up the road until, 1 o'clock in the morning or whatever, for a game it's off.
Yeah, and that's, you have to factor in as well the fact that at that particular time there was really severe snowy conditions up in that part of the country as well. So
Yeah.
all it would have taken would be for the snow to come down heavy again, and it would have made that journey back up for the county fans even longer. So it's to be perfectly honest, if I had my way, I would play football in the summer.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
we're not guaranteed to get great weather every summer here in Scotland, obviously, but the weather chances of being better in the summer, are way improved than playing it in the winter time.
Yeah, no, exactly. We'll go on to the Celtic game in a bit, James, as well. But I suppose we need to start tonight. Airdrie against Millen, quarter kickoff under the lights, and I suppose, I don't know. We've had a conversation about this on air, maybe certainly off air, but a lot of people doesn't like plastic parks and all the rest of it, and I don't think football should be played in plastic parks. But if you were watching the game tonight, you would be mistaken, because the Airdrie is one of the better surfaces, if you know what I mean, in terms of AstroTurf.
Is it? To be honest, I haven't seen. I know they got it changed a few years ago, but I haven't seen, what it looks like. But I'm with you. I mean, for me, football should only be played on proper grass. After all, that's how it started, and for me anyway, I think it looks much better that way. But do you know what? If you can get an artificial surface where you can get as close to the ball reacting as it would under normal grass conditions, then I don't see an issue with it. But unfortunately, we're not at that stage yet.
No, it's all about money as well, James, and stuff. I mean, I remember a few years ago when artificial parks was a thing on Scottish football, and I'm sure Hamilton and Dunfermline, did they not used to hire the park out to local groups just to get money?
It's certainly another possibility, a way of getting a bit of revenue into the club, especially clubs that can't rely on the numbers of supporters coming through the gates. But at the end of the day, I've been around long enough to remember when it was all just played on proper pitches. In fact, I can remember playing football when I was a boy on what they used to call black ash pitches. There wasn't a blade of grass in sight, but that's...
And you got your knee all bloody and...
In fact, I'll tell you a very funny story. Well, it wasn't funny at the time, but looking back on it, it's funny. It was one of the first proper artificial surfaces in Scotland, and it was at Strathclyde Country Park. And at the time, I was playing for a junior, an amateur team in Baillieston, and we used to train out there in the winter time because you couldn't really train on the grass because of the weather. And I went in on a slide tackle and I skint my thigh from my knee up to my hip, right? But carried on playing because that's what you did in them days. And it wasn't until I was back in the dressing room and I was going to go home, I discovered I couldn't put my trousers on because I couldn't have anything against that raw wind. Yeah. And I was riding a motorcycle at the time, so I had to ride my motorcycle in the middle of winter in my shorts back home. I was still staying at my mum and dad's at the time, and when I got back, sitting there furiously beeping the motorcycle horn because I couldn't get off the bike. I was literally frozen into that sitting position.
Some guy to cut you out.
They'd come and pick me off the bike and carry me into the house and then sit me next to a Calor gas heater to thaw out.
So yeah, I mean, tonight's game, James, I mean, it's going to be quite interesting because basically I put up at the top where all the shops come from, and maybe this one, but after watching Millen on Tuesday night dominating the game, and to be honest with you, James, if it wasn't for the Hearts goalkeeper, St Mirren would have won that 3 or 4. So I'm expecting St Mirren just to carry on to make the way that they left off on Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, the form book would also say, that you're going to have St Mirren, the Premier League team, winning it. But I love the Cup because it throws up those shocks, like Aberdeen a few seasons ago, potentially Celtic when they played Auchinleck Talbot a couple of weeks ago. I really, at the back of my mind, I thought, you know what, I could see that game getting, beaten. I could see Celtic getting beaten in that game. Fortunately, it didn't, but they didn't play very well. Do you know what I mean? And in some ways, they were a bit lucky to win it. So I think St Mirren will have a toughish game, but I would expect them to win it. I just think that they're going to be too strong for Airdrie. And as long as Airdrie kind of treat it as a one-off game, then they're going to be in with a chance because, let's be honest, their league form is not very good.
I mean, all you could say about lower league teams like Airdrie and all that is this is the cup final tonight, James.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, as long as they treat it like that, they're always in with a chance, And at the end of the day, all it takes is for the smaller team to score one goal better than the bigger team, and they're going to go through. And obviously, the further on in the competition they go, the more money they get. And then, that's all good for the clubs because they don't get that much finance as it is. So a run in a cup competition is always good for them.
Have you been surprised, James? Because obviously they beat Celtic in the cup final, and you could say about Celtic, but at the end of the day, you still got to beat Celtic or Barcelona to win that cup. But in terms of like St Mirren, they've won the cup, but they fell off the roof, as it were. Up until Tuesday night getting Hearts. I mean, why do you think that's? Because I mean, obviously, you would maybe get a lot of confidence winning the cup, but also beating one of the bigger teams in Scotland. And then after that, they've just kind of fell away. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's a mentality thing, or?
That's the only thing I can put it down to, is that in the minds of some of the players, I won't say all of the players, but in the minds of some of the players, they might have thought, you know what, we've arrived. We've won the cup, we've arrived. We can take our foot off the gas a wee bit. Although I would like to think as a professional football player, you wouldn't do that, not until the end of the season. Once all the prizes are handed out, then you can say, oh, well, you know what, we've had a very good season. But I honestly thought when St Mirren beat Celtic in the cup final, League Cup final, I thought they were going to go on a great run because they would have got such a huge lift from it. And I was really surprised that, as you said, they fell off the roof somewhat. And until Tuesday night, I watched their game on Tuesday night as well. And I have to say, I was surprised that it only ended up, that one goal and a very, very late goal at that.
Yeah, the Hearts goalkeeper. I know this is a bit daft, but we were doing the show on Tuesday night. But even though Hearts get beat, I would still give the man of the match to the Hearts goalkeeper.
He was absolutely superb, and I think I can't remember who it was, but I remember somebody said many years ago that a good goalkeeper is every bit as valuable as a good goal scorer in a football team. And that is absolutely true, especially in a league like we have this season that is really quite tight. Normally, as we know in Scotland, you would have Celtic and you would have Rangers. Usually they're the two teams vying for the top prizes and everybody else is playing catch-up. But the fact that Hearts have got off to such a great start and have maintained it throughout the season up until now has been really, really good. And of course, both Celtic and Rangers have, I don't know what they've been doing this season. Maybe they've been smoking some wacky backy, as they say. I don't really know. But both of those teams have certainly had some mad periods this season.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to St Mirren as well. A couple of years ago, Tony Fitzpatrick said when they came into St Mirren, we'll get into the top 6 and we'll qualify for Europe. And obviously the rest of Scottish football is laughing at them to say, well, look at the size of St Mirren and, stuff like that. But as I've always said in the show, and you probably saw me saying it, James, when you're watching the show, I think St Mirren has been punching above their weight the last few seasons.
Yeah. To be honest, out with Celtic and Rangers, most of the teams in the Scottish top flight do tend to punch above their weight. Not every season, but they all have a wee kind of spell when they're kind of like in the ascendancy. But then the problem is, of course, that when they have particular players that are really carrying those teams, that's when the likes of your Celtic, your Rangers, your teams in the Championship or whatever down in England swoop in, pick them up, take them away, and it all comes crashing down. And to be honest, if Hearts didn't have that Tony Bloom and they are helping them, I think that's what would have happened to them this season as well. At some point, late on in the summer transfer window or in this January transfer window, some of their better players would have been scooped up by bigger teams and it would all have come apart.
Do you think as well the game plan that Airdrie will have is to frustrate St Mirren tonight, but also as I keep saying when we do these European shows when Celtic and Rangers work one Europe, is that you've got to keep this game in schedules in terms of Airdrie, the first 15 minutes, half an hour, get to half time 0-0, and then second half come out and have a go. Yeah. I mean, the longer they can keep a reasonably decent low score, whether it's a 0-0 or a 1-0 against them, the better for them it is, because the longer the game goes on, they can then take that opportunity to possibly snatch it. In an ideal scenario, what Airdrie want is to get to the 89th minute and it being 0-0, and then them going up the park and scoring a goal, and then not too much added time, and they manage to keep a clean sheet and they go through. That's the ideal scenario for these little teams in that respect. But if St Mirren come out and get a couple of quick goals, the game's over. Do you think it will affect St Mirren in terms of only playing on Tuesday night to Friday? Because, I mean, you don't have, what's that? You don't have, I think, 1.5 days kind of preparing for the game.
Well, they always say, don't they, that they would much rather play than train. And having played football in my younger days, I can relate to that. But I think it's more about the conditions and the pitch that they're going to play on. How will they handle playing on a plastic surface? If it's not something that they're used to playing on, it can be a leveler. But that's why, actually, I never understand the likes of your Celtics or your Rangers complaining about plastic pitches, because at their training centres, they've got plastic pitches. So if they know they're going to play a game on a plastic pitch, they should spend the period leading up to that game playing on that plastic pitch. Yeah, it might not be as good a quality as the one that they have, but it's still a plastic pitch. You play and you train to the conditions that you're going to actually do a game in my opinion, anyway.
So it's time to put your neck on the line, James, and give us a prediction for the game tonight.
To be honest, I think it will be 3 or 4-0 to St Mirren.
Yeah. I would go along the same lines as you. I would say 3-0 to St Mirren.
Yeah, as I said, don't get me wrong, I would love for Airdrie to, get it right up to the death almost, and even just lose it by 1-0, but to kind of give St Mirren a bit of a fright for near enough 90-odd minutes. But as I said, I think St Mirren will come out of the traps really quick. If they get a couple of quick goals, that's it. Game over.
It makes it better as well, James, because obviously it will go to a finish tonight. Whereas back in the day, you would have to go out on a cold Wednesday night to, Airdrie to see the replay. And I don't know about you, but it loses that kind of sexiness about the cup games, because when you're, I remember a few games like, say I was like Ayr United against, Dundee United, and it was a good game, finished one each, but they had to play a week on Wednesday, and it loses that kind of the sexy side if that's so much to the cup game, and it makes it more exciting than to play it at a finish. That's why I'm a bit surprised how the FA Cup has still get replaced.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it should be a one-off game. I can kind of understand having, like in the English, the EFL trophy, they have 2-legged semi-finals, and I can understand that to a certain extent, but really it should be played as a one-off game, and winner takes all. Because I don't know if you watched the Man City Newcastle game the other night, the second leg of their semi-final, and to be perfectly honest, I felt sorry for Newcastle. And it's not very often you're going to say that, because they're a bloody good side, Newcastle, do you know what I mean? But I felt sorry for them, because they just didn't look as if they had the freshness to play out that game. Obviously, it's a hefty season, and there's that many games that they play nowadays. Do you know what I mean? Especially if they're in the European competition, whether that's the Champions League, the Europa League, the Conference League, whatever it might be. There's all these extra games that they have to play. And then there was that nonsense in the summer of the Club World Championship. What a load of nonsense.
Yeah. All about money, James.
Absolutely. In fact, I heard this. You had this conversation with somebody. It was on your podcast, your new podcast. You were talking about it, and I think it was in relation to the rugby, which starts this weekend. And I think it was you that said something about a game last night. Was it?
Yeah, it was the opener. I can't remember what game it was, but it was last night. Yeah. Yeah,
and you would never ever have had the Six Nations played on a Thursday night. You would never have had it on a Friday night at one time either. So there you go. But as you say, it's all about money.
Yeah, TB rules now, James.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, so that's the game, Airdrie against Mirren. We were going to talk about the Aberdeen Motherwell game, but if you've just come in, that game is now cancelled. It will be held on the 18th of February. It's because of a waterlogged pitch, and the Aberdeen Celtic game, as James was speaking about earlier on, that will be played on the 4th of March as well. And you've got to feel sorry for the supporters, Motherwell and Celtic fans going up there, and Aberdeen fans, because Aberdeen fans might come from Glasgow or they might come from East Kilbride. It doesn't have to be Aberdeen. And Hagen up that way kind of thing. So,
well, as I said to you earlier, Michael, I've got a very good friend, and he's an Aberdeen supporter, but he's from Ayrshire, and he was telling me that he had a mate who had flown up to Aberdeen for the game the other night, because he's an Aberdeen fan. Literally got to his hotel and turned round to come back down the road because the game had been called off while he was still in the air flying up to Aberdeen. Madness, absolute madness. And yet, this time round, they've managed to make a decision on the day before the game. So you won't have people travelling up, on the Saturday, to go up to Aberdeen for a game and then getting halfway up the road and discovering it's called off or whatever.
Yeah, no, they don't listen to their customers sometimes.
No.
And the customers are fans as well. And because we could go down a bit of a rabbit hole with this one, James. But if you were going to the cinema, say, or whatever, and you weren't getting the full experience, you would be asking for your money back.
Absolutely. The thing is, though, football supporters are a kind of captive audience. You know, the clubs kind of know that they're going to have people who will turn up come hell or high water. And really, as you said, you know, there should be some sort of better compensation in place for them. For me, it should be the day before a game, you do your checks. If it has to be called off, you call it off. You don't do it on the day of the game.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I could argue the point that if it was, say, Packet Thistle against Celtic, right, you could maybe get away with calling off the day off a game.
Michael, there's somebody at my door, so if you can excuse me a minute.
There you go. There's Reagan coming on, and Reagan's in the dark, dancing in the dark, as I say, as well. So we'll just wait till Reagan gets his light on, and we will speak football to him. Reagan's goes back from Queen's Park, so we'll get our wee insight into the media conference from Reagan. Reagan, how are you?
Not bad, Michael. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm okay. No, I was just talking about the Airgrace at Millen game tonight. Reagan, what do you think the prediction will be in this one for you?
I think I'm going to go 3-1 to St Mirren, Michael.
3-1. Me and James went 3-0 to St Mirren. So, yeah, Airdrie against St Mirren. And if you haven't heard, Reagan, well, probably you have, Aberdeen Motherwell game's off.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that at about 2:30 when I was in Queen's Park. So someone mentioned it because they're actually going to the match tomorrow. So they're not going anymore.
Yeah. So we'll just go on now to talk about the other game tomorrow night. It's at 5:30, another weird kick-off time in a boycott. I hear at Celtic against Dundee. I don't know if you guys have any views on boycotts. We're going to talk about boycotts in a minute, but I knew name will be coming into Celtic tomorrow, I think, Oxley and Chamberlain, James.
Aye, I had a lot of admiration for him when he was a young player coming through. If he does eventually sign for Celtic, I think they'll get a tune out of him. But I would like to have seen him maybe playing there 10 years ago. And they couldn't have got him there 10 years ago, but, you know, in terms of his ability. But somebody said you may lose your, you know, physicality, but if you've got a good footballing brain, you never lose that.
Yeah, no, one of, and I think Martin O'Neill's wanted him all along, James.
Well, as I said to you earlier, I caught Martin O'Neill's press conference earlier on this afternoon, and certainly reading between the lines when he was being asked about Oxlade-Chamberlain, that came across, you know, that he really wants him to be there. So, you know, and again, at the end of the day, it's only till the end of the season at this moment in time. Maybe they'll put a clause in there, you know, that if he does particularly well, between now and the end of the season, they might give him another season, you know. But I believe he's not going to make it for the European squad because I think that had to be finalised by yesterday, if my memory serves me right.
Yeah, no, exactly. So we haven't spoke for ages. Obviously, you were on the show a few weeks ago when the window was still open. What do you think of the transfer window, James?
If I look at it in its entirety, nowhere near good enough. You know, bringing in loan players, I don't necessarily have anything against players coming in on loan, but I've always held the view that if a player's good enough and the club are really keen on them, they should pay the money to get them in and get them in full time. But I can understand the way that Celtic operate, the way that Celtic have always operated. They never seem to decide, you know, right, we're going to go for this player and this player, and they go out there and they get them. Other clubs seem to be able to say, right, we're going to go for X, and they bring X in. But Celtic always kind of seem to hang back, and then you have the supporters getting really annoyed about it. And, it's just, I see, to be honest, I don't pay any attention to the transfer windows anymore, because you just sit there and if you followed up on every lead, on every player that got mentioned, your head would burst. So I just leave it until the club says, right, we're bringing in X, and he's on a 3-year contract, or he's a loan player, whatever it is, and then that's it. Move on.
Yeah, I mean, every window, especially this window, James, as well. Like, you hear rumours and all that, but you didn't hear any rumours this window.
Not really, no. The only one that I can really sort of put my finger on is the boy Mvuka, who, as I had seen it, he was going to be signing for $3.5 million on a contract. And then the next thing, and I think it was Regan actually that pointed it out to me, that there had been some sort of issue at the boy's medical, but he was now coming in as a loan player for the remainder of the season. But I understand that they have an option to buy all of the. I don't know so much about Araujo, but I know Vanchara, Adama, and Mvuka, they have options to buy them at the end of the loan period.
I didn't understand that one, James. Like,
which one?
He failed his medical, and then he's here because you would think that if he failed his medical, it wouldn't be coming on loan either.
Well, it puts me in mind of two players, right?
John Hartson.
One of them was John Hartson, and the other one was he played for Manchester City, a guy called Asa Hartford. He was also a great Scotland player. And Asa Hartford played with a hole in his heart. Never knew he had a hole in his heart. And I can't remember who it was that he was going to be transferred to, but it was picked up in his medical, and the transfer all fell apart. In John Hartson's case, he was having a medical with Rangers, and they balked because he had the knee problems and what have you, and they pulled away from that. And then I think it was maybe 6 months or a year later that he signed for Celtic. And John Hartson did say himself that he enjoyed scoring against Rangers purely because they knocked him back.
What about the protest thing, James? Obviously, they've asked Martin O'Neill about it today, and he said that, because Brian Wilson's acting the chairman, and I think he brought a video on TV this week to say that there's going to be a meeting between him and the supporters as well. I mean, it's weird to think, right, James, because Martin O'Neill's come back, right? It's a different type of supporter now in terms of the football. Obviously, Celtic took 80,000 to Seville years ago, and stuff, and then. And that, like that was the day before kind of like social media actually was a thing. Obviously, you had Bebo and MySpace kicking off, but you didn't have social media that as big as big today. But I mean, what do you think Martin O'Neill thinks about it now? Because obviously he was there at the AGM when the AGM get cancelled because there was a kind of like uproar as well. And then the latest one is a boycott tomorrow night, James. Now, I mean, I've got my own views on that, but I mean, where do you stand on that, James?
Well, to be honest, for me personally, I don't think there should be anything like a boycott. For me, if you're a football supporter or a fan, however you want to describe yourself, you support that team through hell and high water. Don't care what happens upstairs in boardrooms. That's a completely separate issue. If you have to deal with that, you deal with that separately. but your focus has got to be on the team. You should be behind the team 100%. When I used to go and I had a season ticket for Celtic Park for many, many years, even when I still lived down south, I had the season ticket, but it stayed at my mum's. And if I wasn't using it, one of my cousins could get the use of it and stuff like that. But I never left a football match until the actual final whistle. Didn't matter how long the game lasted, I was there until the end. If Celtic were 10-0 ahead in a game, I was still there right to the bitter end. You know, and I used to get, not annoyed, but I got dismayed with people who would leave early. I understand for some people, in terms of, you know, transportation, it can be an issue. So I kind of understand that. But there was a guy who used to sit near me at Celtic Park, and he lived in the high flats at the back of the Jock Stein stand, and he always left 15 minutes before a game. Now, there's no need for him to leave 15 minutes before a game if he lives across the road.
Yeah.
I just don't understand it. But I don't think they should boycott the games. To be honest, I don't really understand all the ins and outs of the dispute. You know, I've read bits and pieces, and obviously on social media there's all sorts of vitriol going on about the Green Brigade, and I'm not going to get involved in a discussion about that because I don't really know all the ins and outs of it. But I'll just say, as I said before, they should support the team 100%, regardless of what's happening off field. It's the guys on the field that you should be supporting.
Paul, we'll come back to your comment because we briefly spoke about your game being off tomorrow night, but we'll come back and talk about your point in a minute. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you, James, because obviously, you know, there's been banners about, you know, the board and individuals, and there's been banners outside the park about you know the banners I'm talking about.
Yeah.
A red line through it as well, and you know, but I mean, I wrote about this the other week, James, and I sent you my article about people's mental health as well, because it doesn't impact them as individuals, impacts their family. I mean, look at Peter Lawwell, right? Apparently he was getting kind of not death threats, but threats online.
Yeah.
But, I mean, what does that do to his wife or his children? Or, you know, people forget that. See, and that's all right. We love doing the show, and this is why you love coming on with me, because I'm a brilliant presenter and all that. But people forget that it's a game. It's only a game of football.
Yeah.
But people take that over the white line sometimes.
The thing is, ironically enough, it is social media that's part of the problem, because you can sit there behind the anonymity of your computer screen and you can type anything you like about anybody, more or less without any fear of any reprisals against you. And you don't have to think about, you know, if I attack person A, the effect it might have on his son or his daughter or his wife or whatever. You know, it's just, and I know I'm probably going to upset some people when I say this, right? But I've got to say it. There are a certain section of Celtic supporters who have grown up with nothing but success. They don't know the times when the team wasn't being successful, and therefore they feel entitled. And I'm using the word entitled advisedly, that they should always be winning. But you know what? You can't win all the time.
I think that's the word I would say, James, kind of like entitlement as well. I mean, if you go back to obviously we weren't about then, but let's say that the 50s, like Celtic wasn't winning anything. But there was nobody saying, we need to buy players, and if we don't buy players, we'll hold up a banner at the football, maybe out of a macaroon bar at the time or whatever. But you know things like that, and that's why football has changed, but football's still got the kind of like ugly side to it as well.
Mm.
In terms of like comparing that to rugby, totally different.
Yeah.
I mean, for a scatter fans sit together.
Yeah, I mean, well, rugby's always kind of been referred to as a gentleman's sport, but it's not really, you know. It's quite a brutal sport at times, but no, I get the idea of why they call it a gentleman's sport, because they do kind of mix together. They can go to the, you know, Murrayfield or whatever, and they can have a beer and they can sit watching the game having a beer and all that kind of stuff. And if you go to Europe, you know, you go to stadiums, whether you're following Celtic or Rangers or whoever, you know, and you can sit there watching the game and you can have a glass, well, not a glass, it's a plastic cup thing, but, you know, you can sit and have a beer while you're watching the game. You know, it's really quite civilised in that respect. But of course, the hooliganism element from the 70s onwards is really the thing that, you know, kind of put the kibosh and all that. And now they're starting to talk about possibly reintroducing it. I think I've seen somewhere recently that they're thinking about maybe doing it at Scotland games. And they did a wee experiment, didn't they, at some of the championship grounds.
Yeah.
If my memory serves me right, they did it at Partick Thistle for a while.
Yeah. I think St Mirren actually done it as well, James.
Did they?
Early on this season now.
So, I mean, I think it's a good idea, you know, because let's be honest, if you go to a corporate event, you know, one of the big clubs, you know, and you're going there for your lunch and all that, you get drinks at half time and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, I suppose that is different from the general herd, shall we say, for want of a better word.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's just that I suppose in some ways there are some people who just, you cannot allow them to drink because they can't handle a drink, and when you do get too much, they just become violent.
So that's the negative part of today's support. Let's speak about the positives. I think Celtic against Dundee, 5:30 kickoff on the Saturday night. Another crazy time, but hey-oh, that's what we're used to now. What do you think of this game? Because obviously I think Martin was a bit annoyed in terms of how the game was called off at the last minute on Wednesday night. And I think he was more annoyed about the fans going all the way up there. I mean, Paul Donaldson was making the point. Paul comes from Glasgow and he's an Aberdeen fan. So I would imagine Paul would be going up to Aberdeen tomorrow night. But what do you make of the game tomorrow night, James? Because Dundee has actually, the Stephen Press has got them playing well, but it's kind of been a kind of up and down season.
Yeah, it's one of those games whereby if everything worked the way that it should work, Celtic should breeze through it. But Dundee have been a bit of a bogey team to Celtic for a few years now. Not so much at Celtic Park, but certainly up at Dens Park, they've caused a few problems. I think it'll be a good game. I don't think Dundee will come out and they'll sit back. I don't expect them to come and have a go at Celtic like Falkirk did the other week. I really don't see them doing that. But I think it will be a more open game than, a Dundee playing with 11 men behind the ball and hoping, that they might get a breakaway and score a goal and prevent Celtic from scoring more than them. I think it'll be a bit more open than that.
Do you think Martin will make any changes tomorrow to the team?
Well, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? Will he use any of the new guys? And by new guys, I'm talking about the fellas that come in at the end of the transfer window there. I'm not talking about, the two boys that were already there. I think he will make changes. I don't know if he'll start with many of them. I think Araujo and Vanchara possibly could start the game. But as the other three boys, they might come on at some point during the game. But I don't think he'll start all of those new players to begin with.
I know I was saying to you about Aberdeen and Celtic being off Wednesday, but maybe one plus Martin and Neil could have took from that game was it gives the players more time to bed in, because obviously James, like they come in and what was it, Monday night, and like they only had like one training session and then on the bus to Aberdeen.
Yeah, I mean, obviously from the players' perspective, it did them a favour. But as the team as a whole, I think it would have been better to have played on Wednesday, especially if they won, because then they would be carrying forward that confidence, of a couple of victories back to back and then going in to play the cup game. But it is what it is. So you've got to play what's in front of you, as the saying goes. But I think Celtic will win the game quite comfortably. But I think Dundee will not be a team that will sit back and try and frustrate. I think they'll try and play a little bit. But I think Celtic will probably win it at 3-0.
I think this, if it was at Dens Park, James, I think we would be having a totally different conversation. But because it's Parkhead and because it's a bigger park and a wider park and all the rest of it, whereas Dundee, it's the total, I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's the total opposite. It's very tight, it's very kind of, the playing surface is not very good sometimes. And I don't know about you, but that kind of goes in the favour of kind of Dundee teams like that.
I think any team who's playing at home should always be favourite, unless they're having such a horrendous season that, they're getting beat every week. But any team who's playing at home should always be favourite to win a game, in my opinion, because they're going to have the bulk of the support backing them. Mind you, that might not happen if this boycott thing goes ahead, but I don't think it will personally. But I think if you're a home team, you should always be the favourite to win the game. If you're playing away, it becomes a little bit more difficult. And there are certain teams and certain grounds that teams always kind of struggle a wee bit at, And as I said, for a few seasons now, Dundee has kind of been a wee bit of a bogey team for Celtic, especially when Tony Docherty was the man in charge up there. His teams always seemed to really raise the bar against Celtic, which made it a good game. At the end of the day, that's what we all want. Whether you support Dundee, Celtic, Rangers, Hearts, Hibs, whoever, you want a good game.
I think Paul Donaldson might have something to say about the chat and the chat about this. Lyle Cameron, I don't know about you, James, but if I was a Dundee fan, I would be quite annoyed at him. Because obviously he went to Rangers, is now on loan to Dundee.
He's on loan to Aberdeen, isn't he? Cameron.
Aberdeen, sorry, yeah. So I think he'll be quite annoyed because, Dundee would be quite annoyed because obviously he's away to Rangers and then 2 minutes later he's away to Aberdeen.
Well, do you know what? I was kind of surprised when he got loaned out because under Russell Martin, he did seem to get quite a few games. And I always felt that he looked quite good. But then the new man comes in and for whatever reason, maybe doesn't like him, doesn't like the style of play or whatever, he finds himself down the pecking order. It might have been better going back to Dundee. If that might have been an option, but he might not have fancied going back to Dundee so quickly. He might have felt to himself that might look like I'm admitting fail here.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Reagan, yeah. No,
I think he's a prime example of a player that actually goes to Celtic and Rangers and probably a little bit unlucky in terms of, I think that maybe in terms of the manager that was brought in terms of Russell Martin, because the kind of mayhem that was sort of going on at Rangers with taking Russell Martin out with the police escorts at Falkirk, the booing of the fans. I think if you were doing a Netflix documentary, I think you'd be pretty. I think if you're that player, you'd be thinking, I've entered Rangers at the completely wrong time. I think if he goes to Rangers, like say under a Danny Rowe now or under a Barry Ferguson, I think he probably gets more of a chance. But because Rangers, when Danny Rowe went in, Rangers were 13 points behind. There's sort of no room for error, so there was no real time for him to get any chances, really.
Yeah, and there's been lots of players, over the years who have moved to bigger clubs, for want of a better expression, and for whatever reason, it's not worked out for them. Just like there's a lot of young players who have played in academies that never get the chance to play in the first teams, and then they end up going away, and then you have this whole argument about, all the best talent is going down to England, but they're not getting the opportunity because the bigger teams who they're maybe in the academy of can afford to buy in players, and that pushes them further and further down.
Regan, talk to me about the boycott. Obviously, me and James was talking about the so-called boycott. Where do you stand on that? And are you going to the game tomorrow? And will you be boycotting
it? No, Michael, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there. Just watch a good game of football, Michael. I think Celtic against Dundee should be a good match to go and watch. I'm not interested in boycotts, to be honest. I don't think boycotts is the way forward, because if you want to go and watch Scottish football, then there's no point boycotting the match. I think a good example that Celtic fans done at the AGM, where they showed the red card to the board and said basically spend money. I think that's a great example, but I don't think things like boycotting matches is good, because also it's not a good sign for the brand new players as well. I know that Celtic board are not spending money and stuff, and it is very frustrating because Celtic as a club should be moving forward. They should be progressing every year. I think that's been a frustration of Ange Postecoglou. Then it was a frustration of Brendan Rodgers there, and the end of his time, the very first time when he didn't get 2 or 3 players, and then obviously it was a frustration because Brendan Rodgers was then left with not very many players after the transfer window, and then Celtic go on and sell Shun Yamada, Thiago Holm, and also Anamura, he went back to Asia as well. So I think it just shows you that the policy from Celtic in terms of their scouting is not very good. I think even Martin O'Neill mentioned it the other day that when he was brought into Celtic, he wasn't really fully behind the board in terms of the recruitment.
Well, I thought it was interesting that Martin did say a few days ago that he felt that Paul Tidsdale recruitment was completely wrong. And he never obviously didn't name any names in terms of players, but he hinted that there were players that were brought into the club that don't deserve to be at Celtic, And I think it's interesting that Martin O'Neill, said that, because Paul Tidsdale always seemed to be, what was it he called himself? Was it the god of football or something like that?
No, yeah. the football doctor.
The football doctor, that was it. Aye, yeah, and do you know what? See, if I bumped into him in the street, I wouldn't recognise him.
No,
I really wouldn't.
Because he's got that. He wears a top hat. For anyone that doesn't know, he wears a top hat in his daily life. So, I think it's pretty hard to recognise. But I think Yes, it's quite interesting, James.
And it just goes to show Paul Tiskill is a brilliant man, is a brilliant guy, and he knows about football because he's not got a job yet. But never mind. Let's go into your prediction, guy, for the game. Are you going to Celtic and Dundee, and also boycotts? What do you think the score will be in this one, Reagan?
Celtic 3, Dundee 0.
You were listening to me earlier, Reagan, because that's what I predicted.
I'll go for 4-0 then. 4-0.
Okay, so I was going to go for 4-0, but Reagan stole my thunder. So I will go. Do I have 5? Maybe 5-0. There you go. Well, I was going to go 6-0. That was unfair. And stuff like that. So that's the game tomorrow night. Dundee against Celtic against Dundee at 5:30. I think to Paul that will come back his comments. Me and James Mega spoke about this for about 15 minutes up at the top of the show. Reagan, what do you think of this one? Paul Donaldson, he says, frustrated to have another match postponed, but at least we have got 24 hours notice. It's time to start having conversations about moving the season to summer months in football. And James kind of said that as well earlier on. But where do you stand, Reagan? Because obviously the game on Wednesday night was called off at 3:30.
Yeah, Michael, I mean, first of all, you're going to make me start greeting because you keep saying where do I stand. Anyway. I'm standing in Mauritius. No, I think summer football is making a way forward because, as we know, Scottish football is it is played during the winter months and it is very cold. So I do agree with you and James, but I was told earlier that basically there was a person who told that basically that there should have been a pitch inspection in the morning at Aberdeen on Wednesday, but there was no referee to go up and do it during the day because some of the referees were working in their day jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, Jim. I was just going to say quickly, that's a lot of nonsense, that, because surely the way that they do in the past is they phone in a local ref from Aberdeen to inspect the park. So I wouldn't imagine it could be any ref, right? Any junior ref or, whatever. It doesn't have to be Premiership, professional refs to go and see it, because, I mean, you can see it by your own eyes of the park's very, like playable. So, I mean, I would imagine that a pitch inspection, I don't know, James, 9 o'clock in the morning, I think that would be fair.
Well, as I said to you at the top of the show, Michael, in my opinion, it should be the day before. And they should put in place, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a referee or a linesman or somebody like that, but they should have somebody that can go in and look at the state of the pitch and make the call. Yes, the weather might change in the 24 hours between a decision to play it and a decision to call it off. We're in Scotland, for goodness sake, so that's always a possibility. But if you can make a decision early enough, then it's the supporters ultimately that lose out. The supporters who are travelling up to Aberdeen or down from Aberdeen, or, as we mentioned, guys from Ross County coming all the way down to Glasgow for a game and then it gets called off just prior to the game. It's not on, But football supporters they're a captive audience. And football doesn't really care that much about the supporters. Let's be honest about it.
Okay, let's move on to the game on Sunday. And could get happen again, James? Could the Spiders play against the Rats on Sunday? I don't know. By the way, if you haven't heard that story, maybe I don't know, Reagan saw it on social media, but there was a rat coming out of one of the stands during the game on Sunday night, on Wednesday night against Kilmarnock. So I don't know if rats can eat spiders. I'm not actually sure. I think you can. But I don't know if do you think it will happen again, James, on Sunday?
Well, do you know what? I had forgotten that it was only a year ago, more or less to the day, that it did happen the first time round. Again, it's the thing about the smaller team coming up against the bigger team. Usually it's when you're playing at the smaller team's home park that you can slip up. You wouldn't expect a big club like Rangers or Celtic or Hearts or whoever to fall at home to a much smaller team from a few divisions below them. But last year, the Spiders showed that it could be done. I would like to think that they could do it because they are my local team now. And as much as I live literally about 10 minutes walk, 15 minutes walk.
Give me a cup of tea, the back of free.
Well, do you know what? I did mention this to you the last time you did an interview with somebody up there that you could have called in, but you didn't bother. So don't be trying to put it on me, Mr. Stevenson. You know what I mean? As Michael's fond of saying, stand up for yourself, boy.
Yeah. I can't do that here.
But no, I think Rangers will be a bit too strong for Queens the weekend, but because they're my local team, I'll be rooting for them.
Before we go on to talk about the Ranger side of things, Reagan was up at Hampden Park, believe it or not, today, interviewing the Sean Clayton, and I think he's got a bit of the press conference. So this is what he was saying before the game.
Didn't have much to say, did he?
No, it was very quiet. No. There we go.
It's a bonus, and again we need to try and go and enjoy the experience, and I'm sure we will. Again, the squad's kind of a wee bit depleted, to be honest. Obviously we've felt the kind of bumps and bruises of the kind of schedule that we've had over the last couple of weeks, but any guys that come in, they just need to be ready to go.
Is it even harder to try and make Rangers strike twice? The Rangers are very aware, obviously, of what happened last season. Does that make it harder to make this happen again?
I think, to a point of view, listen, I'm not thinking about last year. This is a new year, a new Rangers team, a new Queen's Park team. The whole thing's new. I know that people say you're out for revenge and all that. Rangers will look for revenge, etc. But we just need to treat it as a game, and that's the kind of approach that we've had. Listen, it was a fairy tale last year, and if we can repeat that, then great. But if not, we need to make sure we don't have a good kind of experience, but also show that we're a good side as well.
I was going to ask, does it help you've got players that did win at Ibrox last year? Does that help them still?
Yeah, again, I spoke to obviously the guys that were involved last year, and for their point of view, do you know what I mean? They seen it, they done it, they wore the t-shirt, so you can obviously, through their point of view, you can kind of feed off their experiences. So, and to be fair, they have been great in that sense, that you've got that wee bit of know-how for last year as well. And we've managed to get good work on the training pitch this week to, again, hopefully go and enjoy it, but also if we can go and get a result, it would be great.
If you do well on Sunday, can that be a catalyst for the league?
I think it definitely can. I mean, I spoke about Tuesday. I was disappointed with the result on Tuesday. The performance was okay, but we know ourselves that we need to improve. I think the biggest thing for me was the schedule probably caught up on us a wee bit in terms of probably guys having that wee bit of fatigue, etc. But we've managed to have an extra day this week because the game also being on Sunday, so that's a bonus. And they should all be looking forward to it, and I think the big thing for me is as well, players will naturally get an adrenaline from playing at Ibrox and getting the experience, so hopefully that will help them through it as well.
I mean, you mentioned about the squad, are there a few that are touch and go, or do you know kind of now we're a couple of days out what you're going to be going with?
We've got a couple kind of touch and go. Yeah, we obviously had a couple of bumps and bruises the other night there. I was kind of forced into a couple of changes the kind of early part of the second half, which wasn't ideal. They looked as if they might be okay. One or two might be not featuring because, again, as I said, the squad's been quite stretched. I know that we brought in the guys that the likes of Callum Smith and Toddy, etc. come in, but they can't play their cup tie. So it has really stretched the squad, and maybe need to look at other avenues within within the club. Again, looking at maybe some of the young kids as well. That's what we're all about, and that's what we'll have to do if that's the case.
You looking forward to this as a manager? Because you went to Ibrox as a player, no?
Yeah, again, I've said that to the players. I mean, I've played there a few times as a player. And it's a great experience. Again, I managed to I was on the kind of end of a hiding, but I also managed to take points at Ibrox as well as a player. And it's a really good feeling. But I think as a manager, it's a totally different one because the responsibility was on me that day. Now I've got the responsibility of a lot more people in there. So, but no, I'm really looking forward to it. Again, I want to be testing myself at the kind of bigger stage as well, and against a very good manager in Danny Rose. So I'm looking forward to it.
Sean, I was going to ask you, see, in terms of a very young squad, do you think this will be a great experience for them?
Yeah, definitely will. Again, we do have a young squad, and as you say, it will be a great experience for them, but also be a great experience for a lot of the senior ones as well, because they might have to, again, if they've not played at Ibrox, some of them might have not, but also the fact is that they'll need to help the young ones through that. So, no, they should all be looking forward to it, not just the young players.
Have you got favourite Scottish Cup memories of playing?
I'd probably say, to be fair, from my point of view, the first time I played Rangers in the Scottish Cup, and it was away back when Rangers were then actually in the third division, but we actually managed to go 1-0 up. I was at Elgin City at the time, and the big boy Jamie Duff scored an unbelievable goal, to be fair. And we went 0 up, and I've never seen a stadium going from so high to so low. Hopefully we could get and replicate that on Sunday, but no, it was an amazing experience, and I'm hoping obviously you get a full house. Do you know what I mean? That's what you want. That's, as a player, as a manager, that's what you want. I was at Ibrox on Wednesday night watching them against Kilmarnock, and again it was a really busy stadium, and the atmosphere, and obviously the songs before the game, etc. It's an exciting time as a player, but as a manager I feel the same way.
And you saw on Wednesday night the crowds can also turn a little bit, if it isn't going all their own way, so I take it you'll be desperate to kind of make that happen.
Yeah, I think as an away team going to any of these stadiums, you need to try and make it as uncomfortable as you can. I think, from your point of view, I watched them the other night there. Kilmarnock were actually very good in the game. They get a man sent off after 3 minutes, and obviously Jim and I were thinking, we've turned up 3 minutes later, they get a man sent off. But we managed to see some really good work for Kilmarnock, but also for Rangers as well. Do you know what I mean? We've got a really big squad. We've seen some of the new players, etc., which you might find that they'll feature on Sunday. So it was a good kind of homework for us to go and watch it. And as you say, the atmosphere did change, to be fair. And again, we need to try and spoil that as much as we can. That's going to be important.
Sean, I just wanted to ask you, obviously some of the players that were involved this time last year, they've got that experience. Do you think that helps the overall squad as well? Because they've got that experience of actually going to Ibrox and actually taking the match to Rangers as well? Yeah,
I think, as I said earlier, I feed off that. I think all the players feed off that. The guys who obviously with that experience of last year. Listen, if we can get the same result as last year, it'd be a fairy tale, it'd be unbelievable, but we're under no illusion that, as I said, it's a total different dynamic now. We've got a new team, we've got again, Rangers have got a total new team, and let's be honest, Rangers haven't lost a game in a long time as well, so they've got that momentum. So, no, listen, as I said, I think from your point of view, we're going to get our best shot. We're certainly not going there to kind of use that old phrase, to try and park the bus, but sometimes you have to, and that's just natural. We want to have a goal, we want to make sure that we go and enjoy it, and I've said that to the players, there's no point going and not enjoying the experience.
Cheers,
guys.
There you go, that was Sean Clayton talking to Regan and the media today. And Regan, I'm so glad that I'm not the only person that uses that phrase, park the bus.
Yeah, I mean, because I think we've done this show with you for many years, Michael, and that's one phrase that you've used quite a lot.
Yeah, no. I actually phoned them up and said, "Can you use that in the press conference?" But no, I mean you've got to be. Obviously, they'll be up against it, Reagan, but you've got to be confident about going to Ibrox, especially the last time they beat Rangers only last season.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying, Michael, but just for a bit of context here, Queen's Park just sold their best player to St Johnstone last week, but they've also got about maybe 4 or 5 injuries, and they're also the striker they just signed from Raith Rovers is ineligible for the match because he played for Raith Rovers in the last round of the cup. So Queen's Park are pretty stretched. So it's a bit of a shame, to be honest with you. But I think they're. I asked them the question as well about Seb because Seb actually scored in the match against Rangers. So I think in general, I think Queen's Park will go there and they'll try their best, Michael. But I think ultimately it's a different Rangers team from what it was last year. I mean, I was actually doing my research last night, and to actually look at that squad of Rangers players like Agamani, Tavernier, so many good players, and the fact that they weren't able to beat Queen's Park just is a credit to Queen's Park and a credit to obviously it was your pal Davidson that was the manager at the point, Michael.
Yep. Skill never got manager of the year, but hey ho. James, what about you? What do you think ahead of the game?
Well, as I said earlier, because they're my local team now, I would want them to win. I don't think it will happen, sadly, primarily because of some of the things that Reagan said there about, player going to St Johnstone. And for me, the nonsense of the guy that they've signed from Raith Rovers being ineligible because he played in an earlier game in the competition. Same thing would have happened to Stephen Welsh. Had the Aberdeen game gone ahead tomorrow, he's back at Motherwell, but he played against Auchinleck Talbot, so he would have been ineligible as well. Personally, I don't think that should deter a player from being able to play, because let's be honest, players are going to move, and if they move to a team that's still in the the League Cup, the Scottish Cup, whatever, they should be allowed to play it.
Yeah, I also think it was a bit of a bad taste by Celtic, because Celtic knew that more than likely Stephen Welsh was going to go back, and for Celtic to then play.
Well, they knew what they were doing, Reagan.
Absolutely, 100%. They knew what they were doing.
But I still think it's bad for a boyhood Celtic fan who's offered a lot to the club, and then to play him in that match. And I don't actually mind that if Celtic went and said, right, well, it's because we're playing you because you're third choice player, but Dane Murray was playing the last 2 matches when Mills was sitting on the bench. So
yeah,
I think if I'm Stephen Mills and I'm Stephen Mills' family, I think I'm absolutely raging at Celtic, to be honest with you.
And I said to somebody else actually when it was said he was going back to Motherwell, I personally think he will probably sign for Motherwell permanently in the summer.
Yeah, me as well. But to be honest with you, James, I actually think he's better than Dane Murray, because I've been watching him this season, and I just think he's a totally different player. He plays the ball from the back, and obviously me and Michael done an interview for the Scottish Football Zone a few weeks ago, and obviously Anthony Joseph said to us that Steve Clarke has personally told Stephen Welsh that if he plays well for Motherwell between now and the end of the season, then he'll be off to America with Scotland.
Yeah, I mean, I've always liked Stephen Welsh. I know a lot of Celtic supporters, voiced doubts, to put it politely. But I've always felt that there was a player in there you know, but he was hampered a little bit because there were other players who were a bit better than him in front of him, you know, and he only got the odd, you know, 5 or 10 minutes here or there, or if somebody got injured. And he really needed to go and play football, you know, on a regular basis, week in, week out. And as you said, Regan, you can see he's benefiting from doing that with Motherwell.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why I was so surprised that Celtic brought him back and then proceeded to not play him, because surely because of what he's been shown at Motherwell, especially a few matches against obviously Rangers and against Hearts as well. He was brilliant in those games, and obviously he's now caught the eye of Steve Clark, who wants him to go to America as well. So
yeah, and I mean, if you think about it from a personal perspective, if that was you, you know, in his position, you know, and your club loan you out somewhere and you're doing really, really well, they bring you back and then they sit you on the bench, you'd be thinking to yourself, what have I got to do?
And if you want to listen to that interview again, just go over to the TikTok page. That's it there, Scottish Football Zone, and you can follow there and you can hear that interview again. Well, you can hear actually the press conference again that Regan was in today. What about Rangers? Regan, they're in a good run of form at the moment.
Yeah, they're playing really well. I think it's a contrast to this time last year. I think ultimately that's why I see Rangers winning the match. But I think Rangers are doing well at the moment. I think that they're on a bit of a roll, to put it that way. But I think in terms of what actually Danny Rowe's done, he's actually done really well, because I think Rangers were 13 points behind when Danny Rowe basically, when he entered the building at Rangers. So fair play to him. I mean, Rangers have done really well. But I think, like you said there, Michael, I think that ultimately Rangers for me will be too strong.
So what's your prediction for this one, guys? Rangers and Queen's Park. Maybe that's a 2:00 kickoff on Sunday. And before we get your guys' predictions, it wasn't Danny Rowe. It was doing the press conference. It was Stephen Smith today. Because I don't know about you guys, but I saw a video of Danny Rowe on our social media platform during the week at Edinburgh Airport on Thursday. So I thought that was a bit weird going out to.
No, he was away for a holiday, Mike. He was away for a holiday.
A 2-day holiday going back to Govan for the game on Sunday at Queen's Park. But Stephen Smith was actually speaking yesterday about the game. He says we need to be ready for the game on Sunday, because we know what happened the last time that they came to Ibrox. So your prediction for the game on Sunday, James?
My heart says another 1-0 to Queen's Park, but my head says 3-0 to Rangers.
I'm going to go Rangers 2, Queen's Park 1.
Regan, you must be psychic, right? Because I was going to go for 2-1 as well. Have you got on the same? Have you got on the same jump as me, by the way, just in case you're
No.
Right, okay, that's good. No, it's just because you're copying everything I'm saying on the show. Right, so okay, 3-1 Rangers.
Yep, that's fair enough. Michael, I just wanted to add as well, there's 2 other interviews that will be up around about 7:30 tonight. And that is the Queen's Park number 1 who saved the penalty against James Tavernier last year. He spoke to me for about a good 5 to 10 minutes. So I'll put that up on TikTok later. And also Michael Shields, who's a product of the Rangers Academy. But he plays for Queen's Park at the moment. and he was actually telling me that his family is full of Celtic supporters. So they're all hoping that Queen's Park can do the job.
And if you want to hear the interview in full, head along to that one, TikTok. And while you're there, while I'm on a nice mood tonight, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. It gets the Scottish Football Zone. Go on, you know you want to. On a Friday night. So that's the game on Sunday, guys. Let's speak about another weird kickoff time on Sunday night, 7:30. It's a derby. It's Skinner's against Falkirk, Regan.
Yeah, that's going to be a cracker. It's the Jamie Swinney derby because obviously he left Stenhousemuir, the Falkirk chief exec. I know he moved from Stenhousemuir to Falkirk, and what a move that's been from because Falkirk's been transformed the last couple of years.
James, have something on Friday and Sunday night?
Well, the Stenhousemuir players will have the greater incentive because for every goal they score, they plant a tree. And that's across all of their teams. So the kids, the women's, the men's teams. Across all of their teams, every time they score a goal, they get a tree planted. So they'll have a great incentive to score as many goals as possible.
Is that a joke?
No, that's true. That's genuine.
Are they trying to branch out, James?
Oh, I nearly broke my ribs there laughing, Michael. No, honestly, that is true. That they've done some sort of they've done some sort of tie-up with one of these ecology charities to plant trees. I think it was last year the kids teams planted 1,000 trees. So
I've never heard of that one, James. That's new.
No, I just came across it. Was it yesterday or Wednesday? Either yesterday or Wednesday, I came across it. And I didn't know I was going to be on here for this to happen tonight. You know, it's just one of those little things that kind of sticks in your mind.
Well, there you go, Regan. We like exclusive news on the show. There you go. You've heard it from James from the Beach Golf Garden. That they like to plant trees. So I'm not keeping up on Skinner's this season at all, Regan, but I think it will be a difficult game because Falkirk's a good team, but I'm not sure of the playing surface at Skinner's, so it might be a bit of a different surface.
Yeah, sorry, Michael. I'm just trying to look up on Google about this tree plant. I think
are you pulling up trees?
Don't believe anything you see on Google, by the way.
Oh, don't believe anything James tells you about him.
Oh, no. You have to believe everything I tell you because I never tell lies.
Exactly, yes. I was just saying, Regan, I'm not so keeping up to date with the lower league team, so I don't know what to expect from, I think they call themselves Stenny.
Stenny,
yeah. Stenny, yeah. I think Stenny have been doing pretty well the last few years. They've obviously won the title last year. So I think they'll pose a thing to I think they'll pose a threat to Falkirk, but I think that ultimately I think Falkirk will end up winning the match, Michael.
James, have you been you've been impressed with Falkirk this season? Obviously, you saw them at Parkhead on Sunday, but a couple of Wednesdays ago, I mean, I don't know why. Celtic done well to grind that victory out, but Falkirk were the better team.
Oh, definitely. Falkirk have been great this season. They really have. And in fact, as I mentioned to you earlier, I've got a friend who's an Aberdeen supporter, and he's been banging on that they should get John McGlynn up to Aberdeen as the manager, because in his opinion, he's the perfect fit for them. But he's done a great job, John McGlynn. And it's the fact that they go out and they play football. Doesn't matter who they're up against. They go out and they play football. And to me, that's how it should be. Every game should be like that. Both teams going for it. Yes, you're maybe going to get a right hiding at times, but you're going to entertain the audience. And it's meant to be an entertainment. So,
James, sorry to interrupt me, but I'm looking up the tree planting thing here on Google. And I can actually see nothing here.
I told you, just because it's not on Google doesn't mean it's not true.
Yeah. That's a good point that you've made.
Social media and the internet is not the most reliable source of information.
Well,
it is people who are in the know.
Have you heard that?
Rangers.
Have you heard that through the grapevine, aye?
Actually, I saw it on STV Sports News.
Oh.
If it's wrong information, you can blame STV.
That's only in political matters. In sporting matters are usually pretty good.
I think we need to get out this hole here as well. But have you been, James? I mean, I want to get your view on obviously, that we were talking about Celtic and maybe Rangers and all the other teams in the Premiership. Are you not surprised how they never took a punt on a Falkirk player in terms of, like, I'll give you an example. At Celtic, Calvin Miller.
Well, Calvin Miller was at Celtic as a youngster, and he was allowed to go. And if my memory serves me right, they didn't think that physically he was going to mature enough to make the Celtic team.
Mm-hmm.
I can't understand it.
I think I know why Michael's brought that one up, because I read yesterday that Celtic obviously pulled out a last-minute deal for Calvin Miller on Monday night.
Did you? Right, okay.
Did they?
I never knew that.
Yeah. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, it was on Sky Sports News yesterday.
All right.
That's STV's got a mention and Sky's got a mention. What else can I mention on the show?
Please.
Not that. Huh?
Please.
Yeah. Please, yeah.
Do you know who I think Celtic might have maybe took a punt on? Is the boy who's on loan for Dunfermline to Falkirk, the centre forward. Is it Barney Stewart? Or Barry Stewart?
That's a boy Scotty got at University. Reagan was at Edinburgh.
He's a good player, isn't he?
He's a good player, yeah. He's got a lot of goals in the championship.
Because was there not, I might be wrong, you could probably correct me on this, but I think I saw something prior to Christmas that Falkirk were getting worried that he might have to go back to Dunfermline in January. And they were obviously worried about losing, the kind of goal scorer that they had. But then I don't know if they came to another agreement with Dunfermline to extend the loan or whatever the case may have been. But he has been a revelation, in my opinion. I didn't realise that he'd come through from, playing football for Edinburgh University or anything like that.
Yeah, I think it was Edinburgh. It wasn't Edinburgh University games. It was, I think it was Heriot Watt.
Right. Well, the university anyway. So, but he's a terrific goal scorer. He's very instinctive. That's the thing that I like about him. He's very instinctive, and he seems to know where to be at the right time.
What's your predictions for this one, James? Stenhousemuir against Falkirk.
Well, if Stenhousemuir load Falkirk goal with trees. I'll go for a win for Steny. But I don't think they'll do that. I think the SFA might have something to say about that. So I'm going to go for 3-0 Falkirk.
I'm going to go 3-1 to Falkirk.
I think Falkirk would pick up. I can't think of the word, but they'll come out the game with Mills or shoots. That didn't work, that Joe, because I wanted to. But yeah, you know what I mean. Kind of like what's the saying, James? Like
Shoots of recovery. Shoots of recovery.
Yeah. Well, not exactly like that, but like okay.
Move on.
He doesn't want to bow to your superior intellect there, Regan. You see, that's why he said it's not really that.
And welcome to Sunday's Scottish Football Zone. So I 4-0 to Falkirk on this one. Help me. Okay, let's go to another game in the Scottish Cup, and it's Neil Lennon's at home against Kelty Hearts tomorrow. Of course, Dunfermline beat Hibs in the previous round, Regan, but do you think this will be a straightforward win for the Pars tomorrow?
To be honest with you, I think it will be. I think it'll be a straightforward. I was about to say 3 points there. I think it'll be
might give them 3 points as well.
I think it'll be a straightforward one for the Pars to get through to the quarterfinals. But also, I think it would be great, right? I'm not saying the SFA would be a great idea, right? But I think it would be a good idea if, like, for instance, for the next round, if we could just draw Partick Thistle and Dunfermline, because then you've got a championship team in the semi-final. That'd be brilliant, and then you never know, you know.
In case you haven't known, James, Regan's got a soft spot for Partick Thistle, but also maybe a soft spot for the Spiders as well. I'm not actually sure.
No, I've got a soft spot for championship football, Michael. You know what that is? It doesn't get enough attention.
I'm not really going about soft spots in this show anyway. James, Neil Lennon's did well. I mean, you've got to say that he's did well under the circumstances, because he lost his mum and dad within like a few months of each other, and then he came back and beat Hibs.
Well, he didn't beat Hibs. His team beat Hibs.
Well, yeah.
You know, but I get what you're trying to say, Michael. I get what you're trying to say. Yeah, do you know what? That was the surprising result of the last round for me, Dunfermline beating Hibs. I honestly, I didn't actually have a football coupon on for that, but if I had been putting one on, I'd have put Hibs on as a banker to go through. Well, I'm talking about the banker on my top left here. But, I don't really know that much about Kelty Hearts, so I can't really comment on them as a football team. But I think Dunfermline will definitely win that game.
Okay. Can we edit the show? No, it's live. We can't. So I don't know about you, Regan, but I will go for 3 points and a win for Dunfermline. I will go 4-0.
3 points? You're doing the same thing as me.
I'll go for 4 points and a win for Dunfermline, just to be different. Oh, who's that calling us gentlemen? He obviously doesn't know us.
It's my bank manager.
This is a show for bankers.
Yeah. Welcome. Welcome, one and all. Regan, what about you?
I think I'll go 2-0 to the Pars. 2-0.
2-0 to the Pars. Let's move on to the next two games. Dundee United against Spartans. James.
Are they no for Greece, Spartans? Should they be playing in the Scottish Cup? Well, as Jim Goodwin said, actually, was it yesterday in an interview, that he knows better than most what it is to suffer at the hands of lower opposition in cup games. But I think this time Dundee United will win, and I think they'll win very comfortably. 3-0 to Dundee United.
Well,
Right.
see, to be honest with you, I mean, I do my research on these lower league teams and Spartans and East Kilbride. I mean, Spartans are playing really well now. I don't know if you guys know as well, but they also signed Partick Thistle legend Stevie Lawless as well. So I don't know. There might be a wee shock in the cards there. I don't know.
Is that your shock of the weekend, Reagan?
Yes, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go Dundee United 1, Spartans 1, and Spartans to win on penalties.
Ooh. As Frank McAvenny would say, shockery.
And then let's go for the last one. Reagan will be dead excited about this one because it's Elgin City against Partick Thistle.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, Michael. I mean, in terms of this game, I think Elgin, they beat actually Spartans last week. So I think obviously Elgin are playing pretty well at the moment. I think I'm hoping obviously the shocks happen, Michael, but I think Partick Thistle will be too strong. I actually watched that St Johnstone Partick Thistle game last week. I don't know if you guys seen it, but
Yeah.
I thought Partick Thistle played brilliantly well, and I felt like, to be honest with you, I felt like they totally were worthy of their point in the end, just because of that solo run by Tony Watt to set up the first real chance for Partick Thistle. But I mean, you've also got to say, Michael, what a job has been done by Mark Wilson and Alec Ray. I know that Gordon Dale likes to take the mickey at him and stuff like that and say that he managed Brecon and stuff like that. But what a job he's doing at Partick Thistle.
I'm going to put my neck on the line and say that they might avoid the playoffs and they'll just come up automatically. Because, I mean, they've been in the playoffs for the best part of 3 seasons, James, and still not came up.
Yeah, it's one of those strange things about the championship, isn't it? You know, that teams do very, very well. Sometimes for the first part of the season, they're kind of like the informed team, so to speak. And then everything seems to go wrong and they end up slipping into that playoff. And then, of course, it's anybody's game when it comes to the playoff. I mean, a couple of years ago when they played Ross County and Ross County managed to retain their premiership status, I thought Partick Thistle were very unlucky that day.
James, don't mention it. I mean, Partick Thistle fans will be having a heart attack today.
Listen, I had the heart attack watching it, never mind thinking about it, because a bit like yourself, Regan, I have a bit of a soft spot for Partick Thistle. In fact, any of the Glasgow teams, with the exception of the team on the west side of the city. But, you know, we won't mention any names. I
think it's too late for that, James. I think the boys bust.
But when Clyde were a Glasgow team, you know, I had a soft spot for them, and Clyde Bank back in the day as well. I'm mentioning some names that you guys probably won't recognise there, you know.
Maybe Hill.
I worked with her brother, Billy.
Okay, I think that's a good way to end the show tonight as well. So thanks for watching, and thanks to all your comments. Thanks to James, and thanks to the Cree Hugger, Reagan, and we'll be back on Sunday to look at all the games. And we've got a busy week next week in the league as well, so join us for that one. Thanks for watching, and we will see you soon.
You're watching the Scottish Football Zone with all the build-up and reactions.